In the freezing mud of eastern France, a single fort had already changed hands 4 times. Its walls were cracked open by shells the size of a man. Inside, 4,000 French soldiers were dying of thirst, trapped in tunnels filling with poison gas. This was Fort Vaux. It was only one battlefield inside a battle so massive, it would last 302 days. The world remembers Verdun as Germany's failed offensive. But the real story is what happened after the Germans stopped advancing. That's when the French army did something no one expected. They didn't just defend Verdun. They took it back, fort by fort, ridge by ridge, one of the most brutal counteroffensives of the war. This is that story. To understand France's comeback, you have to understand the trap Germany built first. By early 1916, Erich von Falkenhayn realized Germany couldn't win by breaking through Allied lines. So he chose a darker strategy: grind France's army to death defending a place they'd refused to abandon. He picked Verdun, an old fortress town sacred to French national pride. Falkenhayn's own words describe the goal bluntly. On February 21, 1916, at 7:15 in the morning, German guns opened fire along a 25-kilometer front. It was one of the most concentrated artillery bombardments the world had ever seen. By the end of the first day, German troops had broken into French lines. Within 3 days, they'd captured Fort Douaumont, almost without a fight, because it had been left nearly empty.
Panic spread through French command.
But one general refused to let Verdun fall.
No retreat!
Hold the line, whatever it costs.
Pétain understood something the Germans didn't fully account for: logistics. He built a rotation system along a single road into Verdun, later nicknamed La Voie Sacrée, the Sacred Way. Nearly 3/4 of the entire French army would cycle through Verdun before the battle ended.
It worked. Keep moving! Move up!
German attacks kept coming through March, April, May. Le Mortom, Dead Man's Hill, changed hands again and again.
Fort Vaux fell in June after a legendary 5-day defense. Soldiers holding out in pitch-black tunnels, using carrier pigeons to reach headquarters.
By July, German troops had pushed to within 5 kilometers of Verdun's citadel. Because on July 1st, something happened 200 kilometers north that changed everything.
The British and French their offensive on the Somme, partly to relieve pressure on Verdun. German reserves, meant to finish the job, had to be split.
The German offensive stalled. On August 29th, an exhausted Falkenhayn was removed from command, replaced by Hindenburg and Ludendorff.
They immediately ordered all attacks at Verdun to stop. The Germans had shot their bolt. Now it was France's turn. Command at Verdun shifted to General Robert Nivelle, with a fiercely aggressive commander under him, Charles Mangin.
Mangin believed in one thing: the relentless offense. His men called him the Butcher, and not with affection. But in October 1916, his methods were about to be tested against the fort that started it all.
On October 21st, French artillery began a massive bombardment, including giant 400mm railway guns capable of cracking fortress concrete.
For 3 days, shells rained onto Douaumont.
On October 24th, 3 French divisions advanced. They moved behind a creeping barrage, a curtain of artillery fire moving ahead of the infantry.
Forcing defenders to stay pinned down until French soldiers were almost on top of them.
By nightfall, Fort Douaumont, the symbol of Germany's early triumph, was back in French hands.
6,000 German prisoners were taken.
Nine days later, Fort Vaux was recaptured too, abandoned before the French even arrived. It was a stunning reversal. The forts that defined Germany's advance in February were now trophies of a French counteroffensive nobody had predicted. Mangin wasn't finished. On December 15th, 4 French divisions attacked along a 6-kilometer front near Douaumont.
Beeilung! Das Feuer erwidern! Laden! Schnell! Schussbereit!
By nightfall, the French had retaken Poivre Hill, pushing German forces back almost to where they'd started in February. France captured more than 11,000 German prisoners and destroyed or seized over 100 enemy guns. On December 18th, 1916, 302 days after it began, the Battle of Verdun officially ended. The front line was almost exactly where it had been 10 months earlier. But the cost was almost unimaginable. Over 700,000 casualties combined. Verdun didn't decide the war, but it broke something in both armies that never fully healed. France held its ground, barely, and then clawed back everything it had lost. To this day, the Douaumont ossuary holds the unidentified remains of 130,000 French and German soldiers.